This is my oeuvre. Your oeuvre.
This is my pivot.
Yeah,
This
I
is
know. Sometimes you
my,
have to be.
yeah.
Sometimes you have
But
to be grown up, and I say this as someone who keeps using the word dickhead on my podcast and asking
which I
everybody to
love.
talk about
Never
it.
stop.
So
Never stop.
I shan't, out of spite, if nothing else.
Shot. Yeah. No, but I don't know. I've been in this business now, almost 15 years, and I'm resentful of the idea that what we do is easy or glamorous because of what people perceive, and we are, selling a
Right.
facade. And I think there's a lot of similarities within the fashion world and what you do. So I wanted to create a space where we can talk about the unglamorous realities, the messy parts of the process, and then how we as women
My
predominantly
email.
who are doing this, like,
Yeah.
sustain it. Because it's like we were talking at the top of this, it's just cuckoo
Against
bananas
all odds.
against all odds, and we're here showing up and smiling through it all. And I definitely have my days where I'm like, what
Showing
else
up
can I
and
do?
showing up and drinking through it all. Is that what you said? Yeah,
That's what I
that.
said. Yeah, yeah. What's your
Yeah.
go-to what's your
Good.
go-to drink? Do you have like a
It's just red wine right now. The silver lining of this has been many wine people have sent me wine.
mm,
Lots of lovely Australians who have been like, "Oh, poor you, you're not here in our, bucolic land. Have some wine," and I've gone, "Thank you." Um, yeah, I've been sent a lot, so that's what's and it's been lovely because it's been very nice wine. So I get off like do my calls, try and get on the Peloton, do that, and then literally get off the Peloton. I'm like, yeah, I'm a legend. I worked out. I get in the shower, straight to the wine fridge, straight to Lester Holt NBC News.
okay, how do
That's
you
my
drink
life.
so much wine and then still are in shape and look so good? Like, what's the secret there?
I think that's debatable.
Well,
Um,
it's not a debate right
I,
now.
d- I don't know if they go. I used to joke. It's terrible, dark saying, but it's funny. No, I used to say alcoholic or French. 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 No, because honestly, you'd be in Paris, and I remember once I was doing this shoot with Chanel for something, and the big poobah Chanel, one of the big executives, some very sort of swishy French man, was like, "No, it's so important. You have to have two glasses of red wine with your lunch every day for the health." And so it's a different, also a different. I don't drink lunch. That's my the one thing from skittering me down the slope. But
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
it's a lot of it is just perception too. In some places they're like, "Well, you have to," and we're like, "Oh my God, I gotta go to Betty Ford." No, I think that I try to move my butt a bit, or I don't know, but it's okay. I think if I didn't um, have a glass of wine at night, I would have trouble sleeping. My brain would over rev. So I'm just, and it's very much of its time. I'm trying not to beat myself up too much about anything, really. I think if you come out of this faintly sane and can still fit in your pants, victory.
Victory. You're winning. I mean, that's all any of us can do these days, especially if your
Clear,
pants are
clear.
stretchy.
Exactly. No, I have another thing. I come up with all these dumb sayings, and I'm like, the moment I'm like, just clear that very low bar every day. Just clear the lowest bar. Just,
Okay,
and
so here's
and
what
then
I
you
want to
win.
know. Like, I have so many questions for you, but one of the things that I find so fascinating about you is that you seem to just be overfilled with joy, and there's just like a positivity to you. But I know you're like also a human, so you must have the other side of you that you don't
Please
necessarily
check.
show as much, right? Because it's not necessarily your brand. But like, I'm just so curious how you manage to, despite everything that you've gone through, and I want to obviously get back to the beginning because I'm going totally out of order.
Mm,
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
mm,
reach deep inside yourself, no matter what's going on around you, who you're talking to, who you're rubbing shoulders with, and just like pull out this insane joy
right.
that is so infectious. And reading about your career, to your point where you talk about how personality is so much, like, it seems to be the key factor to your success, is how you've been able to say, fuck it, I'm going to be my authentic self, and I'm going to be really good
Yep.
at what I do, but I'm going to show up. But there's a cost to that, right? There's like a part
There's
of
an
you that,
energy cost.
yeah. So how, like,
Yeah.
yes, how?
Um, I think at the end of the day, well, just at the core of me, I think there's a part of I'm just happy to be here. And I don't think that's changed, whether it's because of where I'm from and I wasn't born in the middle of this and I came from a farm in Australia. And so there's still a little bit of, I don't, happy to be here. I don't mythologize it as much as I used to, of course not, because I'm in it now. But I do have a deep appreciation for people. People are my food, not like that. But I do, if I'm able to be exposed to creative, brilliant, talented people regularly, and then if those creative, brilliant, talented people do something because I had a dumb idea, and then it appears in the world because it was something I thought of like literally in the shower and thought, what if I would do this? That's intensely gratifying. And also to have their trust in you is hugely gratifying. So I think that does give me a kick, like talking to people I respect, who I've gotten to know, who I've developed a relationship with over the years, growing up a bit, meeting more different people than what I thought I'd be interested in when I was younger, and I just was old fashioned all the time. But I do know there are days, and I will have days, and my team will know that I'm like Icarus. I'm like, she's gonna fall. Like they can see me kind of sputtering, and they were telling me the other day, it made me laugh though. I didn't even know this. Yeah, we just don't send you emails after 4:30, which they have, but it was like I really go within a certain amount of time. But then I get tired because I can't quite maintain it. And then some days of this I've just been like, I can't get out of bed, or I've gone and I've run through like 4 hours of Zooms, and I've done a lot of public facing things, and there's that, and then I've just gone and gotten in the bed at like 3:30, and it's not infinite at all, but I think I'm better around people, but then other times, and then I want to cut them all off completely and just like go in the bed. But no, I think I'm a communicative person, and I do feel joy too. Look, I put joy on the goddamn cover,
Yep.
and I put a smiley face. I mean, I went as literal as possible. Sorry for those who in this video it is, I forget.
There'll be video. Is this
Smiley face
yeah?
t-shirt.
She's holding up the wonderful cover with Kate Hudson on it with the smiley face.
And
on her
I was like, mate, I've known her for ages, and I was like, I just need you to go full serotonin. I need this to go right into people's arms. Like you gotta put this rave hair on and a smiley face t-shirt, and we're gonna go onward, which I like to say all the time, in joyful fashion. See, pun. It's also a pun because we're pretty advanced. And then she's like, yeah, and I'm like, cool. So that's it's a lovely. It is a joy. It's a lovely word. I had someone. Funny you say that. I'm so flattered to hear it. Anything describe that word, but we just hired a copy chief the other day, and I wasn't very structured with my questions because I never am. But our managing editor, who's much more grown up, was like, "We feel there's 3 words that were to describe InStyle or something," and she went joy, and I went, "Oh,
yeah."
So it's a lovely thing. It's one that if you have some, or strive to keep some, or strive to make some, or share some.
Well, it's interesting because people talk about, this search for happiness, this like never ending search, but it's from all of my self-help and therapy and all the things. It's like, you cannot strive for happiness because that's a temporary state of being, but joy is in everything. If you have joy in every single thing that you are doing, that is a state of being, and you can be joy. And so when I look at you, and who you seem to be.
Look at these beautiful flowers I got. Yeah.
Those are beautiful, It just seems like you ooze joy, and so people gravitate to you like your little joy honey pot, and there's just a bunch of little bees coming to you. And myself included, hence why I've been following you for years and reached out and was just like, if there's any editor-in-chief of any magazine that I would personally want to talk to and just kind of understand your world a little more and the parallels between what we do, it's Laura Brown. And so here you are on my show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. No, I do say, ironically, given what your show is about, people would say, do you see, over the years, you're an editor, you're this, you're this, you're this, you're this. And I've always said I am a producer. I'm a producer, and I'm also kind of, now the media being as is, I'm a host. So I'm like, and I say each issue of the magazine or whatever has all of these things are little mini movies, and they come with their own idea, their their own concept, their own casting, their own budget, their own production, their own
Except we only get
promotion,
to see
their
one
own
frame,
thing.
right? We only see one frame at a
Yeah.
time of your movie.
And
Yeah.
so each one is its own thing. So it has its own budget. And we have, okay, we've got this amount of this. I just did this big thing on Atlanta, people in Atlanta. And so I always say we do all these varying degrees of little movies every issue, because we have to do it. That's what you will do for an hour and a half, 2 hours on the screen. We do in smaller, more visual, not more visual, because screen's visual, with small iterations. And but each one is its own production, and each one right now is much harder than it normally is.
Yeah, I can only imagine how it's been
Yeah.
with all the COVID of it all. But will you?
Do you want to know?
it-
Wait, I got this.
Yeah.
This is important. You know how many COVID tests we've done so far at InStyle since COVID?
12,000. No.
No shit. Now I sound lame. 378 on shoots.
Okay, on shoots.
About 400 people. You're not supposed to say. Hang on. You're supposed to go.
You want to take it
how
again?
many?
You want to
And I
take
go,
it again? Okay, let's take it again. Let's do a take two. Okay.
Wait. Do you know how many COVID tests we've done so far in our sets?
No, how many?
Almost 400.
That's
and guess
crazy.
how much they cost? Lots.
A lot. A lot. I bet you're like, if I could take the money from these freaking COVID tests and put it towards what goes on the screen or on the
diamonds.
Page. Oh God.
Diamonds.
Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started.
My joke is that we run a COVID testing facility with cameras. That's what you go and get your COVID test and do all that, and then eventually take some pictures, maybe.
In some fancy gowns. Yeah, absolutely. But so will you take us, is it possible to,
yes,
because like aside from the September issue documentary, which is very different. Your life, but like, is it possible to take us through, if you were talking to me and my listeners, like we're a bunch of like 3-year-olds, the whole process from start to finish, every month that you go through? To get a magazine
maybe
out.
This is a good example.
Yeah.
Maybe because it's the current issue, just because it's top of mind. I mean, yes, the process is, well, the idea, number one. I mean, if you're going to be super chronological, it's booking the cover, even though we might have stories we've prepared that when the cover might be a late booking. But the biggest thing with my job is to read the room, obviously, and try and work out what people might be interested in seeing and showing them. So it's a mood first. Number one, I'll just give March as an example of this Kate Hudson one, because this was coming out. I knew this was going to be coming out in February, 11 months after we'd been they'd been sequestered, and people were going to be like, So I was like, okay, I'm going to give them some cheer. So I say, and I'm quite, the good proportion of the visual ideas still come from me, even though my bulb is dimming, they still come. And I was like, you know what? Okay, I want the Hollywood's cheery girl who I haven't actually, I've shot a million times at Harper's Bazaar, my old job, but I have not at InStyle. To want her, I just want to freaking go literal smiley. So we go and ask. Well, if there's some women I know, I always do the right thing. I do the diligence. We go through the publicist, but sometimes I might send a cheeky text, and just go, "Hey, because you don't want to. You will not go around the publicist because they'll kill you." But and I was like, "Hey, dude, we need you to give out your vibes." And she's like, "Oh yeah," and the publicist says yes. So it's basically, we'll book the gal on the cover. We'll get a shoot date. And I'll come up with a concept, or we'll come up with a concept. So say it's shooting in 3 weeks from then. I'll come up with a concept, this was like sort of rave, 90s rave. We'll pull together a mood board for the pictures and potential photographers we'd like to pitch to shoot it. And I'm normally quite clear on who I would like that to be. At the moment, I've been so happy to meet all these young, up for it, brilliant, enthusiastic, not the old machine bullshit photographers. So I've been completely reinvigorated with working with them too. So you send your mood board off, you go, okay, how about this photographer, that photographer, and they'll go, okay, this one. Then we'll assign a stylist, and then we start to do a fashion board which is me going, okay, 90s rave. Let's look at what references there are from the runways of the last season. So then we'll have a meeting with the fashion team, me, our creative director, and we'll go through sheets and sheets and sheets, board basically of collections. And I'll go, oh my God, I love that pink Fendi, or I love that yellow Versace, or whatever. And that'll go on. I'm reasonable. I'm not super micromanaging with that, but then they'll go into my picks, and then we'll start calling them in. And then we'll see if we can get them. If we can't get them, there'll be something on the board that I'll go, oh my God, I want that for the cover. I mean, this was very straightforward. It's just a cheap T-shirt, but other times it might be, I really need that Chanel pink jacket, and then we'll see if we can get it. So sometimes publications compete over clothes. It might be on a cover exclusive with somebody, so you can't have it. And I'm not so rigid about what I want the cover shot to look to be. So I try to keep, because for me, the best shot is always the cover. I don't go, oh my God, if it's not the Ralph Lauren, it's over. Because that would be a healthy way to live. So I sort of go, this would be good. Try this. So then we mark which ones we're going to try. Then we all get to set, do 75 million COVID tests, do hair and makeup, which we do a big Zoom with me, the stylist, the hair, the makeup, the producer, the photographer, just to remove as much ambiguity as possible. I, having been someone who's been on 1 million sets, I used to be on all our sets when I booked covers for Bazaar, I very well know not everything goes to the fan of sitting behind the desk going, she should wear this. But you try, and then you sort of negotiate how much time you have to shoot. You negotiate a video concept in that time too, so you can obviously go off the page and on the computer, on your social stuff, your social clip concept for that, get that, enlist the digital team, they get a crew, and you all show up at some point. You all show up for your 8 hours, shoot as much as you can. The moment it's been a real pain in the ass because we've had to just lurk around in a Zoom on cover sessions, which just sucks. And then there'll be just when you think you've got the Zoom thing worked out, then you end up in Malibu and there's a reception, or there's always just something. So it's been particularly wearing of late. But then you get your pictures back, and I'm always pretty hungry on the date. I'm like, send it to me now. And I know I also don't try to manage it in real time because that doesn't work, because the shot's already done when I know all of that. But and then I'll go, oh, that's it. So we'll get a picture edit in from the photographer, and depends on the photographer. So they'll give you big or small edits. I'm just like, just send us the film, dudes. So back in the day, like, I'm only sending 6 images, and I'd be like, what movie are you in, mate? But just send me the pictures. Then we choose them, do the layout. I come up with a headline of some description, during which time I've commissioned a writer, or oftentimes I do with them if they're Q&As with someone I know. Package all that up by a certain window in our production time frame, which same window all our stories are on. Get it all copy edited. That comes to me for 2 reads to make sure the P's and Q's are right, the captions are on there. It's all, well, when I read it in a Word document, when it's been through the regular editor and say yes, no, or otherwise, goes into the layer, read off on it, and then ship it. So that is, the cover is one of several large stories in the well. The well of the magazine is the part where the ads stop. The other one in March, which was very much a production, was and it's another good example, is I was thinking a lot about Atlanta, and not necessarily politically, even though that was very obviously being top of mind, is because I've been meeting these young photographers to a photographic partnership and another guy who they just both happened to be from Atlanta, and they'd both got in touch with me, and I love them, and they've really changed our work and made us feel so good about it. And I just was thinking about the creative community in Atlanta, and how in Atlanta people often just see it as like Tyler Perry Studios and rap or something, and there's so much more there. And so I asked them, I said, who would you want to shoot? Who would be in this shoot? And so they gave us this cast of people, of musicians and dancers and Real Housewives and models, and then we have to cast all of them individually. So that's another whole kind of, I call them Cecil B. DeMille's technical term, when you've got you've got 20 people on the list, and then you've got to go out, and we have a bookings person or photo people, and we go, okay, Amaya, do you want to be in this shoot? And get all of them. Then we've got to get all their windows of timing. And that shoot went over 2 or 3 days. That all gets planned out, what window they're there, what they're wearing, blah, 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 blah. I again go, I want color, I want this sort of thing. And then we shot all of those guys and then did a big overarching piece on Atlanta written by a hip hop scholar there. And it was a whole lot of work, but honestly, it just felt, I also just knew in my waters, it was a great thing to do, and what it sort of meant. And not just Stacey Abrams stuff, of course it's Stacey Abrams, like Keisha Lance Bottoms shot for it, the mayor. But it was like, there's other, it's my job to understand or to see what's there in the culture and try and ironically I've been to Atlanta one time. I think it was in the dark. But for me to feel that and then find something to celebrate in an important fashion issue, which March is, and talk about the creative community there and then put that out into the world. And that's been amazing because everyone in Atlanta has just loved it. It's felt so good. And that's the best part. You know this from doing films as well. It's like, if you produce something that just makes your heart feel good and makes everybody who's in it feel happy, and so glad this the mayor.
Gorgeous.
In Gucci, don't you know? Then it's just the best. And it's also not what everybody else is doing. You know, a lot of other magazines are just like, okay, let's stick the model in the thing. And I like to think we try a lot harder. We try a lot harder. And it's not, other magazines can just shoot an actress in some borrowed clothes. And we, of course, we do that, but we think it's incumbent on us to be a bit more interesting, and especially now. So, yeah, so sort of that times multiple things. And then like there's, video concepts and all the stories to look at. There's front of book, we call it, well, the fashion features, all like, these are the pants from here, buy these pants and shoes. No. So there's a whole bunch of features at the front, which is like, it's all about lime or whatever it is. Or there's, and we do a whole, it is all about lime. No, it's not. Can't imagine if it was. And we do at home stories, and we do a whole sort of panoply of stuff.
I love that word. Very good. Very good.
Thank you. Big word. That's my word of the day. It is a big production every time too. And I have a team of about 35 people, which is not including the digital team, which I'm more of a dotted line to lime. I'm a dotted line.
Oh,
see, I told you.
There it is. Insider trading.
A dotted line to digital. I don't run that because that's another whole beast. But we have a fashion team, a features team, a art team, a copy team, a managing editor team, a production team, and they all keep us all on track. So at the moment today, I've been receiving emails this morning with pitches for June stories in the June issue, and I'm always a bit like, another one.
So is there's no downtime at all? There's just constant crossover between the present, the future, like 3 months ahead, what's happening a year from now. When do you take a break?
Yes.
When does your team and your industry stop? Is that a real question to ask?
Yeah, I mean, number one, like we're sort of stubbornly proud of the fact that over this whole COVID time, when there's been a huge impact on publishing on everything, obviously, we haven't cut an issue. We haven't compressed the schedule. We haven't done anything. We have still 12 issues a year. No one else can really say that. So sort of masochistically into the breach.
Yay!
And I'm so proud of it. So proud of it. But I was saying to someone on my team the other day, I was like, I'm like bursting with pride, but I'd be fine being a little bit less proud if this were a little bit easier. I could be just 80% proud if it's 20% easier. So no, we have cycles. I mean, there's certain weeks that, like, after you ship an issue, with what are we doing now? April issue, we'll ship by Monday, and then you can if people want to take a vacation,
take an evening off.
I mean, whenever I'm on vacation, I'll still read emails and look at layouts. That doesn't really stop. But when we're off for Christmas and we're off for because also I do run a pretty civilized ship. There's no big fire drills. There's no staying up all night. There's no last minute pulling of pages. There's no me. I'm really decisive, so it's not like, to pull it back. So no, what people I've always been very proud of that should be coming. Well, not that anyone's coming in anywhere, but like 10 to 6. See ya. There's no reason why it needs to be more than that. And so, I mean, I think that we are existing in all these different time frames. And then, of course, I do this podcast. So I'm looking at 75 different pod episodes flinging through my inbox and edits on that and listening to that and social clips and things going to PRs from that. And I'm like, which ones, well, what week? So it's a bit like being I'd be the world's worst air traffic controller, but being, oh, sorry for the honks, New York, baby. Yeah, so it is like a producer, but you're also the talent and you're also the host. So
yeah, it's a lot.
it's very dull. It's very dull.
It's not dull at all. It's fascinating. I'm honestly fascinated by it because I understand the madness, and anybody who can like make it look effortless and easy. I know how much work goes on behind the scenes to project that image. So that's why I'm like, tell me your secret, give it to me. But no, I'm curious, like, what would you say is a big misconception that people, not just in fashion, but maybe outside industries have when they look upon you, your job, and producing a magazine?
I think it's changed actually of late because I think people all know that everything is hard, and making things have been hard. I think we just swan around going to fashion shows all day. That's a certain time of the thing, but no, misconception. It's hard because I've never been part of that misconception. So I've never bought into it. So it's like, oh, it's like different voice product. No, not unless you're an asshole. Like, I just, if you treat, I don't treat people badly and we do the right thing. So I don't, I think a lot of time, if you don't know, and you would know the same for film, like if you don't know an industry well, you can mythologize it greatly. And that's the beauty of it in a way. And that's the allure of it when you're outside and you want to be part of it. Ooh, like I can go on a set, I could go to a Hollywood premiere, or I could go to a fashion show, or woo. And then you get to see sort of behind the curtain of that and all the machinations of it. But yeah, I guess that a gal on a fashion also, like, I think the industry is trying, whether sincerely or not, to rid the idea of artifice more, even if a lot of people are just doing it because the mood's gone that way and they don't really believe it. I think, of course, there's times of the year and in the before times where we go to fashion shows, and then sometimes you go to a nice dinner afterwards. But then I think sometimes, like if you're in Paris at the shows and it's 10 days at the end of a month of being away, of really long days, and to go to a dinner at 9:30 at night after being at shows since 10 o'clock in the morning and going seeing advertisers and hurtling around, and like every minute you're like, oh my god, I'm later, I'm going to be in this, like leave the car running, I'm going to go in here for 8 minutes and I'm going to come out and I do this and this and this. That's tiring too. You do get to go to a nice restaurant, and there's a lot of it that is lovely, and a lot of it that is sincerely missed right now.
Yeah,
but that's a slog. It's an endurance slog, and everybody gets quite sick. Like everybody coming back from Europe, but coming back from Europe was not. I think it's not a lot of people did have COVID, but I often just come back like,
yeah. It sounds like. Yeah, it sounds like the equivalent of like film festivals here in our world,
Yes,
it's just a little less fancy because we're not dressing up if we're in parkas at Sundance. But yeah, it's like that same marathon in we're in the cold. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of that. I think everybody who I know who's done the full 10-day festival at Sundance comes back like just annihilated. They have to like rest for 2 weeks just to recalibrate.
Yes, like my mate Richard, my mate who drives us in Paris, Richard. Richard just spends a lot of time taking me to pharmacies. So like
that's the real underbelly of Passion Week, brought to you by pharma. Yeah.
Yes, my stomach, which is your stomach, like it's hilarious. I'm like, can we just go? Anyway.
Yeah, but so then how do you fill your own well energetically, like to keep the like you said, that like there's rest involved, but what does self-care look like to you? How do you fill yourself up, because you have to, there's so much output, right? And that's the thing that when I talk to so many producers, that one of the misconceptions is like, we have to juggle so many balls, and our marathon is long, but we do get breaks, right? You have to sustain it for a film or for a television production calendar, but then you do get time off where you get to just like, fuck the world, I'm going to go do my thing. Sounds like you don't really get to do that. That not for long stretches of time, because you're constantly back on the horse. So like, how do you find that for yourself?
It was also funny before, even as a precursor of this, I was sort of laughing the other day. I was like, look, I'm happy to be an editor-in-chief and it's a great job. And I was like, I didn't get any of these glory days, like this town. I started Time Inc., which then dies. The company dies. Go to Meredith buys it. There's always layoffs. And then Trump is voted in 4 months after I start. So that's like resistance fighting, for 4 years. And then COVID. And I'm like, it's great. It's great out here. No, I think through all it is just so I was like, where was my town car? Where was my long lunch? No, I've never had that. And I'm glad I haven't had that, honestly, but just funny. It just seems like a parallel universe that ever happened. I think I have to sleep. I really have to sleep. I am quite good I don't run a long day, especially now. I might know, like I'll do Zoom calls from like 11 till 3. And I'm like, I've had people, I've been on Zooms for 8 hours. And I'm like, well, do you have any control over when you can? Yeah, I guess. I'm like, well, then why are you? So I will go and give you a command performance for this, chunk of the day. But then I might have some mornings I might just be lying in bed till 9 o'clock, just reading or doing whatever. Need to get to sleep early. And need to, really take breaks, need to take a vacation or travel somewhere. Try to do a bit of fitness. That's how convincing I am. I just said, do a bit of fitness. Trying to get a bit better at that because I'm 46. I'm not 28 anymore. So I have a lot of energy because again, I from interacting with people, that gives me a lot of energy. But it's not finite at all. And then there will just be some days and I'm just like, guys, team, I can't today. I've got a migraine. I've got, and my poor assistant, my sorry in chief, has to go just wipe the day, just go. I can't, I'm sorry. So it's not, I can't do every single day, and I can feel myself just going down in flames.
Yeah.
So,
do you
because
feel like
what I put out is
it seems like you've had this abundant energy for the majority of your life. It seems like this is just who you are, right? So like, I'm curious if when you were younger, maybe 20 years ago, when you were in your 20s, did you have the maturity to identify that for yourself, or did you like run yourself into the ground? Like, what was that time like?
I think I had more ability to run myself just above going into the ground. I was thinking about this the other day. I'd go for drinks, maybe like one drinks and then like another drinks and then like a dinner in one night. Now I'm like, not really going out much, but dinner, I could go at 5:30 and then just be like done at home.
I got to be done. Yeah, I got to be in bed by 9 with tea.
Done. So I do what I used to commit to in terms of my daily schedule. I can't even conceive that now. Like, even if I've had to go to like one thing before a dinner, I'm like, how do I do this? I need to do some push-ups. I try to consolidate what I do into a shorter amount of time, but I sort of say like, but then I can be like your concentrated fruit juice, you get 100% of the value, like 20% of the time. Like I can really like give it to you, but it has to be within this window. Otherwise you're not gonna get the best of me.
Totally.
No.
I want to just quickly touch upon your beginning roots. And I think I'll definitely mention like the blurb about how you got started, because I think it's important. And I think it's so admirable, right, that you didn't know anybody in this business. You came from Australia with, like you say, got on a plane with 2 bags and a dream, and you just made it happen. But I'm sure like everybody's journey, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. It was riddled with challenges. And you talk about in the beginning,
September 11th.
September 11th. And that's when you moved to New York, like right before September 11th. You've just always been there, right?
7
Your
days.
timing is impeccable, ma'am, which
Not to brag,
but also like a testament, right? That you have managed to stay authentic, stay the course, rise up in every stage of your career. It seems when you've had these like big shifts, it's been married with these like unforeseeable disasters, So the question is
I'm
like, how
guilelessness.
do you, yeah. Well, how do you, so like, I'm personally obsessed with understanding how people weather the downtimes, right? Like there's a lot of podcasts where people talk about like, oh yeah, and then I like struggled for 5 years and I was depressed, but then I sold this thing and then everything was fine. And I'm like, okay, but I want to talk about the 5 years. Like I want to talk about the down slumps and when you're in that place where it doesn't feel possible or your dreams do feel far away or whatever external forces feel like they keep you down, because we've all had them. And so I'm curious how you've gotten through them.
I really think, sorry, I said it while you were talking, but I think being super guileless, especially when I was younger, just kind of going, okay, and not quite really, I'm not a big reader of the instructions. I just kind of show up and then go. And like, even if I'm like, I was on some meeting yesterday trying to pitch a story to some big fancy dude and I hadn't prepared really. The ideas were just kind of coming to me as I was talking. So I think a bit of naivety is a great asset, I think. Sometimes it just means in terms of propelling yourself places, I think. Not overthinking anything. I mean, has anybody ever overthought something and said, that worked out better? No. So I think that I was just kind of showing up and again I think being on foreign turf, so even it's sort of those, it might have been different if I'd gone through more adversity maybe in Australia because that's where you're from, so I think it affects you more in your soul. I think anything that's happened here was still kind of an adventure, like still something that was new and that I didn't normally do. It wasn't my life because I was somewhere new. I was in New York City or I was in LA, or so it was always seemed a little bit out of itself. So I think anything that has been, look, September 11th happened. Then I had a job and then the magazine closed down like 2 weeks later. And it was just always sort of, but it just was a bit like happening out here somehow, like not quite in my head because it just seemed very surreal.
It doesn't seem like you've internalized these things to the point where maybe it debilitated you or made you question the path or question your self-worth.
It didn't do that, but it didn't. But I did realize I have had thoughts, and I moved on from them now. But I used to have this sort of a dream, because especially when you're conditioned, especially in magazines, editor-in-chief of a fashion magazine is the tippity top of the tree, and all you've ever dreamed of, and blah blah blah. And so when I was younger, I used to sort of have these dreams of paranoid thoughts that one day I wasn't in that life anymore, that I'd lost a job or something, and that wasn't there for me. So I think me, as easily as I said I was maneuvering it, it was predicated on the fact that it was going to be a given to me, that was my life now, and that my life was all this stimulus and these amazing people and this kind of stuff. And the thought, I guess, subconsciously of not having that anymore was very scary when I was younger. As you get older, of course, you get more aware of your equity, and your equity doesn't just exist in InStyle magazine. It exists in all different places. So it's better. But I think that so as skippy as I would say I was, that was definitely an underlying thing. Obviously, if my subconscious is going, "Oh my God, you lost your job," that's very, very revealing. But I think that so everything was skippy as long as the ground was level, or at least my perception of a level ground, which I think is a little more wonky than other people's given my history in the States.
Well, I mean, I asked this question because I'm very transparent about this with my own journey. And as a person who did come to the States when I was 9, I'm from Brazil. I think like I had that, immigrant hustle in me. And from a young age, not by my parents doing, I've always felt like I'm going to do something great. And I didn't know what that was. And when I found the arts, and I wish I had gone into, I want to be in tech, but I found the arts. And for me, it was like theater and performing, and eventually I found my way into producing, and I've always just put one foot in front of the other and just kept going, forward momentum. That's always how I've been. I've just come out the gate with that hustle, right? But the downside is that the cost of that for me, when things haven't panned out, when things haven't gone the way I thought or hoped they would, because I've done all these things and I have this equity, why doesn't X happen, has sometimes lent itself to it impacting my self-worth and me feeling like,
Right.
oh, well, especially coming up as a freelancer, well, if this person isn't hiring me for this project, or if this producer, this other producer, or this director I did this other movie with isn't calling me back for the next movie, that must be a reflection of who I am, right? Or something I've done, as opposed to just completely things that are outside of your control. And yes, there are some situations where you're not the right working fit, but like,
they don't think about you that much. Yeah. That's why you have to go, like, that's why, you got to go, they're not sitting there thinking about you all day. But then you're the first person to go.
Yes. And for most of my 20s, I would go through these undulations of like depression, really, because it would hit me really hard, is what I guess where I'm going with this. And so in keeping shit real and talking about that I feel like that's an important like thing to highlight, because every single person I've had on the show, from producers of all walks of life who are way more impressive than me, who have won Academy Awards and worked with the best of the best, struggle with this. And it's just mind-blowing to me.
And if it's an industry that is that has a myth to it, and then you got to be careful that you're not buying into that yourself and then attaching your value to the myth about which you know better. And I do think, again, in your 20s, you're so busy hurtling everywhere and you're not quite thinking straight. So I think that you're also more open to that when you're younger, of course.
Yeah.
But I think, you've got to be careful. You just don't, buy into that. It's not just like, it's if you're, I'm not being won by this film that has all this shiny stuff with it, as opposed to maybe one day it's easier if you just work down the street. But no, you gotta understand how it works, how all that nitty gritty nothing stuff works. And then whatever worth you've built for yourself by doing all that nitty gritty nothing stuff. And then that arms you, that gives you a much greater sense of calm.
Yeah.
And I never say calm, but I'm certainly calmer, much calmer than I used to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is the journey and the maturity too, of just like growing into yourself and like I said, understanding these parts of yourself that I think people who are drawn into this industry, and it may be the same for fashion, like, or sort of like they thrive in that chaos, and in their 20s are like, I'm going to grab it by the balls and I'm just going to make it my bitch. And then you realize that like, well, that's not really how it works. And then you start to really, like you said, like you kind of go and you're like here, and you start to really just hone it in a little more.
If you're working all night and everything else, you're not doing it right, man. You're not doing it right. Maybe you're not meant to be doing it. It is, if you are good, and to be good and successful, you should have the DNA for it. And hopefully, if you love what you do and you're good at what you do, you do well what you do. You should not be flogging yourself and killing yourself at all. I don't think ever. I just think there's a way for work to be reasonable and productive and fair and equitable and stimulating for everybody in a civilized time frame.
Yeah, I agree.
By God. She said, and then she put on some lip gloss. Mm-hmm.
I guess just to like wrap it up, I mean, there's so many things I want to ask you, but like we just don't have time, and I could literally talk to you all day. I'm sure you get that, and everybody wants to talk to you all day.
Call me anytime, baby.
That's why you're like, I'm in bed at 3 p.m. Leave me the fuck alone. But you've had such an impressive career, and I don't know if you think of yourself that way. I know you said you're just kind of happy to be here, right? But I'm sure there's still so much that you want to do. So it's kind of like a two-parter. When you look back into some of these pivotal turning points in your career and where they've led you now, what are you proudest of, and what do you feel like you have left that you still want to accomplish?
I think I'm proudest of the work I've done. I'm proudest of the fact that I've made things, that I haven't just been some dilettante or vacillator taking pictures of myself or effed around. I make a thing 12 times a year, and within that comes something. So I can kind of dick around on Instagram all day if I want, because I make a thing. So I think what I've made, I think the identity and community that InStyle has now, which is vastly different from what it used to be, and I think it's very, very clear what that is. I think we have a really strong voice, and I don't think you can say that for a lot of other
well, that's
brands,
thanks to you, right? That's really thanks to you. Compliments to you.
For better or for worse, yeah.
Hey,
I just went really Aussie, yeah. And so I'm proud of that. I think I am proud of, as I've said before, I do stand by the idea that your personality is enough, and I didn't sort of compromise that. I think as you get older, when you're younger, you're like, you know, but then as you get older, you sort of triple down on it. So I'm proud of representing or advocating for a culture of kind people doing good work, you know, and being respectful of other people, which is, you know, used to be vastly unusual in my business. You know, and so I think for whatever before I was like, Laura Brown, she's in this fashion, she's this editor, but she's funny and she's, the people were like, ooh. I was like, look at this freak in the circus. So I am proud of that, whatever that's. If it's made younger people feel this is more accessible to them and it's not above them. No one should feel this business, and your business too is something they can't have, they can't access if you work hard. So
Yeah.
I think all of that, and then I think going forward, where I am obviously, but I think what you really work for, all of us do, us ladies, is ownership. Ownership of what you do, ownership of potentially a brand or a company or something else. So I'm super love what I'm doing, you know, but I have employers and I love my employers, but I think when I grow up at some point I might want to do my own thing of some description, or and that takes a while to get that into your head too, when you're still getting over I got this big job at the fashion magazine, and then you start doing it like, yeah, this is cool, but there is other things in life. And when you start to realize other things in life and that you actually could do them, and that your equity will allow you to do them, and your relationships will potentially help you do them, that you've built over all this time, it's a nice feeling. It's a bit scary too, but it's nice. You don't feel like you're coming from nothing. You know, I use this an example of like you build up your equity as like a little wall. You know what I mean? You can stand taller on top of the wall as, you know, the longer you do what you do. So I think, so I'm not, but that's what's also funny though. You can have the job and then still feel like you're 16 years old and be like, what am I going to do when I grow up? You know, there's never, no, I don't think anyone, even the biggest movie star or president or anyone goes, okay, I've reached the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
I don't think
that's the biggest myth.
I don't think anyone does, because it doesn't necessarily have to be for money or fame or whatever. It's just your curiosity and what you prioritize, and that all completely changes.
Yeah.
I'd like to spend more time in Australia, you know, I can't be able to do that.
Yeah. So, do you see yourself ever maybe producing films or TV? Is that something that?
Maybe, yeah. It's so funny. Obviously I have a bunch of friends who are actors, and one of them was saying this to me a couple of years ago. She was like, you should do a producer. And then another friend of mine, like, you should be an actor. It's not too late. I was like, I know, you do that. Potentially. I think that if you sort of use the same framework, I produce this all the time. I think it does follow the same idea. So I think if you have a media company, even if you have a brand, you have to produce, if it's a magazine, some sort of film, video portion, some sort of product. It's all part and parcel now. So it's
like one and the same.
So yeah, I'm certainly open to it. I haven't really gotten my head around that yet, but it's funny. A couple of people are like, you could do this. And I'm like, well, that seems a bit grown up, but okay. But I know it's just a bigger scale.
It is a bigger scale. But you definitely have the stamina for the marathon. So it's just a slightly different, blueprint, but you're still building a house. Basically,
it's just more COVID tests.
A lot more COVID tests. I'll tell you that. So we'll close on this. Regardless of the industry that people are in, because I think predominantly the listeners here are filmmakers, people interested in the film business. Mm-hmm. But I see a lot of parallels between what we do. What's the advice? Right. I know you get the advice question all the time, but for someone who's like young and looks to you and me and says, I want to do a shade of that. Like what advice do you have for them today, like starting now, 2021, and the realities we're in?
Intern. Intern and be inventive. I got to say, this is not anything I would recommend. It's really random. It made me laugh. I had this intern at Harper's Bazaar, and we're just intern in a straightforward way. Like, go knock on the door, place you want to be, contact them, offer yourself up, be humble. I don't use humble like I'm humbled by this award, because that's bullshit. Humble is get the bagel, do all the stuff, because you'll end up having more face time with a boss lady if you get the bagel. But I had an intern once, and to get my attention, he would tweet at me, but he would Photoshop himself into pictures of me, but I was like Khaleesi. And again, I'm not recommending this. I'm just saying, so this kid Ignacio, he ended up being an intern at Harvard Bazaar, and he worked at the photo department. Now he's like the photo director because but he showed a certain degree of inventiveness, which related to what he wanted to do, and communicated in a field in a way that we're used to via social media or whatever. And it got my attention. So, but that was his innate skill. He's a great designer. So I think like work out also the playing field that you're communicating with people on. You know, it's not necessarily going to be I will always read a really great blind email if it's well done. You know what I mean?
Like
I always
my email?
will do that. And I don't think yes. Look at this young hustler. Just cold. Yeah. She's got big dreams.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, for a well-crafted email or something that understands where you want to be. I think anybody I've ever hired, or I think that I've shown, is like I understood the environment where I wanted to be. I didn't necessarily have all the skills, but I was like, I know this magazine, I know this place, I know what it is and what I can offer to it. You can't force anything. So I think get yourself in the door and do anything. And at the moment is get yourself on the Zoom rectangle.
Yep.
But I interned my ass off. I you know, my first 2 jobs came from interning. You know, we in Australia we call it work experience. So I do work experience. But I could not recommend that more. And I think it is a way to be around people. And my intern, actually, she used to go back again when we were in the building. She would go get me my lunch because I'm stuck at the desk. Like people are on me every 15 minutes. But she'd come in and we chat, and she's such a great girl. And she just got a job at I just helped her get a job at Grazia magazine, and so she's got a job after interning, being really acquitting herself well, and it works.
Yeah,
so
just that thing, right? It's so simple, right? It's like showing up, having a good attitude, being humble, doing whatever is needed, because you are an important part of that team. Like getting lunch for you helps you do your job. Vital. That is important. You need food to survive, you know? So there's never any job too small. Yeah.
Don't be above anything. Don't just be there for your Instagram. I mean, I think everybody can smell bullshit. I mean, I always could, but even more now.
Yeah.
And if you're not into this for the right reasons, because it's tough. It's a tough business. It's a business that's really struggling right now with, you know, revenues and everything else. Like it's not, you know, if you're in it for your free bags, it's going to be a while until you get one.
Big difference.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's like, just calm down, but be in it for what you can make.
Yeah.
And then if you're lucky enough to be able to make it with great people that you've earned your relationship with, it's the best. It is. And that is, my friend, you know what that is? That's joyful.
That's joyful. And yes, like
I just gift wrapped that for you.
You gift wrapped. I was going to end it on a note of joy, but you being your own podcast host, you know how to do this. You want to just do my job? No, but thank you. Like I'm so grateful to you for taking the time, for spending an hour of your busy schedule with me and my listeners, and infusing this conversation.
I'm flattered to be asked.
Yeah, with so much joy, and I just feel grateful to get to have a little piece of you and get to know you, and I'm just so excited to see you keeping on doing your thing and watch what you're going to do next, because I think you have a bright future ahead, kid.
Conspirators. I gotta hustle. Well, thank you so much. It was really lovely to be seen in this perspective as you know, as well way I often see it, but not typically others. So the minute you wrote me, I was like, so thank you for your nuance and your understanding of it. And honestly, congrats on making any film ever, because it ain't easy, and any film that comes out good is a fucking miracle.
It is a miracle.
It's really an against all odds story.
And it's always a shock. You're like, I don't know how we did this, but here we are. We did it. And hopefully people will watch it and like it. So
I know. So sally forth, friend. And now we're friends for life. So if you need any, lip gloss, you know where I am. That's all I have to offer.
I will hit you up. I want those free bags. Give me all your leftover stuff.
So many bags.
All the free stuff.
Full.
Well, I know you have to go,
every day.
But you're awesome.
Thank you. I've got to do marketing. All right, Dal. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.